NBA Domination begins. Logan unlocks full-level Aomine Daiki skills. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 121. This kind of remark of not being optimistic about the Los Angeles Lakers is obviously deliberately against the Big Shark, Shaq O'Neal. Big Shark, Shaq O'Neal was furious when he heard it, and he thought to himself that he should not get angry in front of so many spectators, and he barely held his breath and said, "Why did you see it? Does this still need to be asked?" Charles Buckley said dismissively, "The Cleveland Cavaliers have grown in strength again. Enhance a piece of shit." Shaq O'Neal said dismissively, "LeBron James is another year old, Kevin Love's injuries, and the departure of Kyrie Irving is a huge loss." Charles Buckley listened, snorted from his nose, and took a sip of his coffee. Then, he said slowly, "Brother, do you understand the ball? Obviously this year's lineup is more balanced in attack and defense. Indeed, the Cleveland Cavaliers took the team's number 2 scorer Kyrie Irving this year in exchange for Thomas Jr. and Claude, who look a lot weaker offensively in terms of scoring ability. After all, Thomas Jr. and Claude's offensive abilities together are not as good as a Kyrie Irving. But LeBron James's magic stroke actually exchanged Thomas Jr. and Claude for Jimmy Butler, so that the lineup was more balanced after supplementing the former Chicago Bulls general Jimmy Butler, who had a more balanced offense and defense. Jimmy Butler's scoring ability is of course much worse than Kyrie Irving, but his strategy, organization, and defense, Kyrie Irving can't catch up with a few streets. Words. Big Shark, Shaq O'Neal frowned. "I've always had a question about why LeBron James didn't trade Dwight Howard directly. Indeed, the Cleveland Cavaliers actually have the opportunity to get Dwight Howard directly from the Hawks, who have decided to abandon Dwight Howard. You know, Warcraft Dwight Howard was at his peak, but he was the only man in the league who could change LeBron James alone. Even though Warcraft Dwight Howard is now plagued by injuries and waist injuries, compared to the peak moment, the state has now been discounted, but the power of the two LeBron James together is still not to be underestimated. Why didn't LeBron James Warcraft Dwight Howard, but go to great lengths to get Jimmy Butler? That's a problem. And right now, LeBron James and Jimmy Butler were doing shooting training, and LeBron James suddenly whispered to Jimmy Butler, "I guess, now Shaq O'Neal must be guessing, why don't I just exchange Dwight Howard, but change you, Jimmy Butler said with a straight face, "I don't know why. A team doesn't really need 2 leaders. Dwight Howard may be better for you." LeBron James narrowed his eyes at Jimmy Butler and said, "You think you're the leader?" In front of the first man in the league who reversed the 73-win Golden State Warriors, claiming to be the leader, Jimmy Butler smiled coldly and said, "Whoever can lead the team to victory is the leader. It could be you, it could be me, it could be Junior, it could be Clarkson, it could be anyone." Clarkson, who was practicing shooting next to him, suddenly shook his hand. His back was cold, and he shot a 3-point shot directly when he warmed up in front, and almost fell to the ground. Someone actually mentioned the word leader and applied it to himself. What's more, this is the defending champion Cleveland Cavaliers who have the league's first man, LeBron James. Even as the leader on the bench, Clarkson couldn't say he deserved it. Which big mouth said this? No, it cursed itself like this. After hearing Jimmy Butler's remarks, LeBron James suddenly burst out laughing, and then said seriously, "You are a mercenary man." This sentence, he said in English, the benefit in it does not mean profit, but victory. Jimmy Butler smiled, showing a mouthful of snow-white teeth, and said, "Yes, I only need to win, and everyone around the people who pursue victory is a leader, and not a leader." In Rogan's history line, Jimmy Butler did just that, and he never skimped on the distribution of ball rights when he was with the Miami Heat, and he only stepped forward when the scene was very critical. As long as the teammates who are single-mindedly pursuing victory get along well with Jimmy Butler, such as the great Embiid has more than once expressed his miss for Jimmy Butler in public. To know that before the Kawhi Leonard killed the Philadelphia 76ers, it was Jimmy Butler who withstood the pressure and made a one-stop layup for the Philadelphia 76ers, although in the end he was killed, but Jimmy Butler was indispensable, daring to fight a hard battle, and the ability to fight a hard battle was also vividly displayed. Of course, those teammates who want to be bosses in those days, such as Anthony Downs, are of course quite critical of Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler's desire to win was cleared by LeBron James. Seeing that LeBron James has completely seen through himself, Jimmy Butler has finally stopped hiding himself and completely relaxed. Dwight Howard, no ability to lead the game. Jimmy Butler said lightly, yes. LeBron James laughed, and it was, as evidenced by Dwight's failure to form F4 with the Los Angeles Lakers. Dwight Howard's strength and skills are not a problem, but in the middle of a group of supergiants to become a big boss, skills and strength are only your basic necessary conditions. Spirit, courage, diligence, aura, these cannot be less. Dwight Howard obviously did not have the mental courage and hard work necessary to be a big boss, but he desperately wanted to be a big boss and compete with Kobe Bryant for the ball. How could LeBron James include such a player? As long as you can lead the team to victory. Jimmy Butler said plainly, "The ball, it's all yours, and the burden, it's all mine." LeBron James laughed like a cunning fox, "When I scored 9 points in one game." Jimmy Butler smiled coldly and said, "The ball, by me, will be distributed." Nearby, Junior Smith, Tristan Thompson, Kevin Love, and others were all trembling as anyone dared to talk to the Emperor in this way. Episode 122. Want to compete with the Emperor for the right to the ball? You are crazy to put it, you bold guy. It's not that no one has ever done it, and there was once an all-star level player on the Cleveland Cavaliers named Ricky Davis who said unceremoniously to the media, "I thought LeBron James was here to assist me." Before he could finish speaking, he was traded away by the Cavaliers. Talking to the Emperor like this is simply no different from looking for death. As we all know, Emperor LeBron James holds the power of life and death of this team. What general manager, coach, all our bubbles, no, all our decorations. Emperor LeBron James specifies who to give a high salary, who will get a high salary. Emperor LeBron James decides who to trade, and the management will trade this person at all costs, as long as the other team's team is willing to release people. Emperor LeBron James to see who is not good, you wait to leave the team, even if you take a salary of 10 or 20 million, the team still dares to cut you directly, without a trade. Of course, the Emperor LeBron James is also particularly accurate in seeing people, who he gives a high salary, who is definitely worth the money, who he wants to drive away, that person to other teams, basically can't even look at the water dispenser, none of them can play. For example, Mozgov in Logan's history line played well with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and LeBron James helped him get a contract that was okay. However, later in a trade with the Los Angeles Lakers, he was replaced. After the change, Mozgov was immediately beaten back to the original form. Without LeBron James to help him contain the opponent, the data average is only 3 points and 3 rebounds per game, is a complete water dispenser level strength. The Los Angeles Lakers are pit to cry without tears. Therefore, the players signed by LeBron James can only play their strength around LeBron James. No one dared to offend the Emperor, LeBron James. Among LeBron James' past teammates, the Western Conference All-Star regular, rebounding king Kevin Love, did not dare. The leader of the league, who is considered to be the most ignorant of the league's highs, and scores like a hanging chop, Kyrie Irving, does not dare. There is also considered the league's best scoring guard in the entire history except for Kobe Bryant, except for Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, the absolute leader of the Miami Heat, LeBron James's longtime best friend, Dwayne Wade does not dare. Is it crazy that this newcomer guy would dare to speak to LeBron James like this? Especially Clarkson, Junior Smith, these people who were named by Jimmy Butler, are simply scolding Jimmy Butler's ancestors for 18 generations in their hearts. You have nothing to do with us, you blow yourself up, even if you take me to reincarnate? Jimmy Butler also looked at them and said, "Today's game, you have to work as hard as LeBron." Clarkson and Junior Smith almost vomited blood, and the problem Jimmy Butler, the number 3 on the team, they couldn't afford to offend, so they had to nod their heads in praise. Opposite them, Logan and D'Angelo Russell were also doing shooting practice, and D'Angelo Russell secretly asked Logan, "Why don't you practice three-pointers?" Logan smiled, since that training game, using the experience version of Midorima Shintaro ability, these juniors have focused on their own three-point shooting skills, thinking that if they don't shoot a few three-pointers today, they can't get over this hurdle. At the moment, Shintaro Midorima system ability cannot be used, but it doesn't matter, he still has the trump card of zone. In fact, in the game, Logan has not officially turned on the zone ability. Because, he has not met any opponents who are worth using zone. The opponents of the Summer League are all old and sick, even if they are as strong as Yuanxiu, they are still unpolished semi-finished products. Logan said that often I want to open the zone, but it has not yet started, the game is over. The Warcraft Dwayne Howard in the back is no longer the peak version of the Warcraft Dwayne Howard, but the state of waist injury. And James Harden, at this moment is not the peak of Logan's history line James Harden, a hand to retreat to the 3 points of the world invincible, but also a half-finished product. It can be said that Logan has not yet completely confronted the top strong man who is really both offensive and defensive. Emperor LeBron James, of course, is the real league's top powerhouse, deservedly the first person in the league. However, after this game, Logan felt that the nickname of Emperor LeBron James was about to become the first person in the M Nation's home league. Today he finally faced LeBron James, the league's first emperor, and he wanted to try the effect of this zone. It seems like something terrible is going on the other side. D'Angelo Russell's eyes were very sharp, I see that their expressions are all wrong, and some of them are trembling. Yes, he read that right, it was Clarkson and Junior Smith shivering there. Ruardun's ear was very good, I hear them discussing the leadership or something. Logan suddenly became serious, be careful. today's Cleveland Cavaliers will have 2 leaders. D'Angelo Russell was astonished. What do you mean by 2 leaders? Logan groaned. LeBron James, sure enough, is as old as LeBron James in his own history line. Really found a way to deal with himself. That is, the team has 2 organizational points and offensive starting points, such as the combination of Chris Paul and James Harden, both of whom can hold the ball and organize. Such combinations are rare in the league, but LeBron James and Jimmy Butler can do it. In Logan's history line, Jimmy Butler was already the top all-around small forward no less than LeBron James at the peak, with a total of 6 games in the finals, winning 2 super triple-doubles of 30+, and definitely a very good qualified organizational small forward. And their own team, there is currently no second giant. As long as the 2 offensive launch points are scattered, the opponent has no way to take the Cleveland Cavaliers. After all, you can't move instantaneously, from one side to the other in an instant. Literally, meaning, if I limit LeBron James. Logan cautioned, Jimmy Butler may be the second offensive starting point, and you must help me guard him. Episode 123. D'Angelo Russell was shocked and said, "Boss, you value this man so much." From the tone of Logan's speech, he could clearly feel Logan's importance to Jimmy Butler as a person. Because of the ordinary Alliance superstar, Logan did not pay attention to it at all. For example, DeMarcus Cousins, Dwayne Wise-Howard, Cameron Anthony, and others, they are already superstars who are only 1 ring away, but Logan seems to mention them in a plain and dismissive tone. Not counting the superstars of the previous generation, who could bring Logan up, with a little tone, D'Angelo Russell remembered only Stephen Curry and LeBron James. In addition, James Harden, Klay Thompson, and Kevin Durant, as well as Anthony Davis, are also more valued by Logan. But these are the heavyweights of the league, either long established or rising stars. In contrast, this Jimmy Butler can be regarded as lonely and nameless. Why can Logan pay so much attention? Logan thought to himself that it was because you weren't a crosser, and if you saw Jimmy Butler make it to the finals with a bunch of old and sick people, you'd like him. At this point, the Los Angeles Lakers have finished warming up and put their new formation in full swing. Surprisingly, today's LeBron James is still not in the position of a small forward. He plays as a point guard, a position that can be switched to a shooting guard at any time, and ready to play against Logan. It seems that LeBron James is also going to gamble on the honor of the Emperor and Logan. Interesting. Flying pig, cried Charles Buckley, he is going to confront Logan to defend the honor of the Emperor. Ha ha ha. Big Shark, O'Neal also laughed. After this game, whose head the Emperor's crown is still on, it's hard to say. Flying pig, Charles Buckley also laughed. After the game, you will find that the Emperor is still the Emperor, your uncle is still your uncle. The 2 are still the same. In the broadcast room, no one obeys the other. You support me opposed, constantly fighting. The Cleveland Cavaliers starting lineup: point guard LeBron James, shooting guard Junior Smith, center Tristan Thompson, big forward Kevin Love, small forward Jimmy Butler. The Los Angeles Lakers are also elite. This time, the audience immediately found that the Los Angeles Lakers also changed the lineup. Their starting point guard is Logan. D'Angelo Russell changed to play point guard. At this time, in the broadcast room of the Dragon Kingdom, Zhang Lili also sighed in surprise. The point guard is Logan? Does he have the ability to respond and organize? No. Logan's organizational talent must be on full display today. Scott Pippen squinted his eyes at Zhang's reasonable guidance. Anyway, in your mouth, what Logan does to lose his conscience and hurt heaven is reasonable, or watch me use 3 inches of tongue to help you round back. Scott Pippen coughed and said, now the NBA fashion is a new type of organizational guard, called the double guard. This kind of guard can both score and organize. Stephen Curry, this is the typical double guard, and the traditional organizational guard is different. Double energy guard is what it is. Zhang reasonable guidance immediately after listening to a look of confusion. You know, this is not the death of the 5 small era in Logan's history line. What Trae Young, Doncic and other dual-duty guards have sprung up. James Harden and Russell Westbrook have become the predecessors of the double-duty guard. In this historical line, the double energy guard is still a very fresh term, and it is no wonder that Zhang reasonable guidance will not understand. Scott Pippen had to simply explain to Zhang Lili that the dual-player guard is the kind of guard with strong scoring ability. Zhang Lili listened to the guidance and said in surprise, but many traditional defenders such as Chris Paul and Steve Nash, their scoring ability is also very strong. They are also double player. In Zhang's reasonable guidance mind, it is indeed impossible to distinguish this concept clearly. John Stockton, Jason Kidd, Rajon Rondo, such as players who do not like to shoot and have weak scoring ability, are not double guard, and Zhang's reasonable guidance can still be clearly divided. But what type of guard is such as Chris Paul and Steve Nash? Zhang reasonable guidance is not clear. Scott Pippen thought to himself that it was time for me to show off. The old man was behind the times, and the latest direction of the league was not clear. He coughed and said, "It is true that the traditional organizational defenders have strong scoring ability, but their first task is to organize. Only when their teammates are completely unorganized, they score themselves. But the first task of the double defender is to look at the state of the players on the field to decide whether they are organized or scored." Zhang Lili said thoughtfully after listening. Then, the dual energy guard is to shoot his own basketball if he is in good shape, and start to organize when his teammates are in good condition. Yes, Director Zhang is worthy of the Taishan Beidou of the Dragon Kingdom Sports Commentary Circle. Scott Pippen hurried to pat a reasonable guide on the ass. Zhang Lili listened and narrowed his eyes. In fact, Scott Pippen, this is all about slapping horses. Taishan Beidou in the domestic sports commentary circle is also Mr. Han, Mr. Liu, and Mr. Huang, where there is Zhang reasonable guidance on what things. Wait, no. Zhang reasonably directed. Chris Paul, Steve Nash is also a teammate when the organization is in good shape, and the teammate is lazy when the state is not good. Blame me for not making it clear. Scott Pippen said, the organization of the two-player guard is not based on direct assists to teammates. Oh? Zhang Lili listened to the surprised eyes and did not directly assist the organization of his teammates. What was going on? Let's take the latest dual player in the league right now, like Stephen Curry. Scott Pippen analyzed, their main task is to score, whether it is a breakthrough or a three-point shot is to score, but when they encounter a bad clip, they can pass the ball to the empty teammates through the team system, let the teammates empty shot. This kind of double guard is the most popular double guard nowadays. Zhang Lili was even more confused after listening to the guidance, and wanted to ask what was going on to pass the ball to the empty teammates through the team system, but he was embarrassed to ask the exit. Scott Pippen saw the opportunity to show his value, and he rushed to explain it and completely seized the C position. Episode 124, that's right. Scott Pippen explains, in the past, the super-capable scoring guards often encountered double bags and even multi-person bags, and when they encountered double bags or even multi-person bags, their first choice must be to quickly pass the ball to their teammates in the empty seats. Zhang Lili nodded and said, everyone understands the reason, but directly passing the ball to the vacant seat is not something that a defender with average organizational ability can do. After all, Zhang reasonable guidance or immersion in the NBA celebrities for many years, this basic common sense is still there. As long as you are a defender, you know that when others are in the double bag, don't be hard, and passing the ball out is the most perfect choice. However, ideas are ideas, and you have to be able to do it. If you want to run faster than T, then you can run faster than T. If you can pass the ball at will under the tight double bag clip, then the two bag clip players are estimated to be cut by the team before they finish playing. Zhang is right that only a few people can pass the ball to the empty seat under the tight pack, such as Chris Paul, Steve Nash, and LeBron James. Of course, you have to organize a very good defender to get the ball to the open seat, and in fact, some small strikers can do it because they are super organized. Scott Pippen paused deliberately and said, for example, the same type of organizational small forward as LeBron James. After Zhang Lili listened to the guidance, he almost choked on the water in the cup, which was coughing incessantly. Even if Zhang Li is stupid enough to guide him, he can hear what Scott Pippen means by this. Dare you? Scott Pippen is changing tricks to boast of his excellent organizational skills. This kind of disguised boasting of his own words, Zhang reasonable guidance resolutely should not. His grandmother's bear, how can there be such a brazen person, and even openly boast of his outstanding ability on the show? Seeing that Zhang Lili did not pick up his own stubble, Scott Pippen laughed and prepared to turn the topic to the main topic. Just listen to Scott Pippen cough and say, however, the organizational ability of the shooting guard is often not good, there is no way to pass the ball out. Zhang reasonable guidance expressed his approval, and this sentence is still relatively professional. Just listen to Scott Pippen continue, even if it's the basketball god Michael Jordan, there is only one triple-double in the career playoffs, Kobe Bryant, with a 3-double of 0 in the playoffs throughout his career, shows that their organizational ability is flawed. Zhang reasonable guidance almost fainted. You change the trick to boast about yourself, but also change the trick to damage Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. No wonder everyone says that this Scott Pippen is particularly prone to jealousy of others. I don't know how Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant will feel when they hear this. But Scott Pippen suddenly became serious and intensified his tone, but if the passing of a shooting guard requires only one or two specific players on the team, it can still be done. Well, that's right, Zhang reasonably instructed that Scott Pippen was right in saying that. This is the new type of organizer. Scott Pippen said solemnly, even Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant can play the role of the organizer, only need to equip him with Drummond Green and Klay Thompson. Not Scott Pippen such a high match. Zhang Lili almost fainted to the ground after listening to it, which was still a disguised praise for himself. But in retrospect, this also makes sense. In fact, the Chicago Bulls of that year really did a bit of what the Warriors' Die 5 small system now. Phil Jackson, the Zen Master of the Year, played the triangle offense with the Chicago Bulls. This triangle attack, later by many players in the league crazy spit out, what triangle attack, is not the three first defense level players, and then pass each other to find a vacancy. It's different from Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, and Drummond Green in passing the ball to each other there, but Dennis Rodman at the third point is not good at passing. In fact, after the Golden State Warriors joined Kevin Durant, plus Andre Iguodala, you have no problem calling it a four-corner offense or a pentagonal offense. So at this point, there need to be one or two planners in the team, they don't need to be in an empty seat, but after passing the ball to them. Scott Pippen summed it up perfectly, they have a way to help you pass the ball to the empty seat, and that's what is now called the Warriors system and secondary assists. Zhang rationally guided this thoroughly, he nodded and said, that is, the shooting guard uses his super scoring ability to create a vacancy, but this vacancy is conducted by other players, and the scoring guard only needs to simply pass the ball out. He added, I think this style of play is similar to the Chicago Bulls' triangular offense. That's right. Hearing someone praise the triangle attack, Scott Pippen immediately became happy, laughing and saying, today's Logan playing point guard is obviously to implement this dual guard style of play. In fact, he still had an idea that he did not say, that is, Logan was obviously deliberately looking for the emperor. This season, LeBron James switched to point guard, and the whole world knows it. Today Logan switched to point guard, which is clearly for the purpose of positioning LeBron James, to limit LeBron James at both ends of the offensive and defensive ends. However, the Emperor did not escape, he wanted to fight with Logan in a dignified manner. At this time, the main lineup of the Los Angeles Lakers has also been fully debuted. Shooting guard D'Angelo Russell, small forward Roar Deng, big forward Landry, center Larry Nance Jr., and organizational guard Rogan, Shine. In the opening, the ball was jumped by LeBron James and Logan. Haha. Shaq O'Neal smiled and said, it's the first time I've seen two organization defenders jump the ball. The two organizational defenders jump the ball, which is also a spectacle of the NBA. Only to see LeBron James puffed up, his eyes were shining, his cheeks were tight, and he wanted to grab people first on the jumping ball and snatch Rogan's ball down. You have to jump with those centers and big forwards who bounce well, such as thick-eyebrow Anthony Davis or Emperor Embitterby. LeBron James may not be able to jump them if he has limited physical height and cannot help run. But in the jump ball of a player in the same position, so far, LeBron James has not lost once. With a whistle, the game began. LeBron James jumped up almost instantaneously at the whistle. Episode 125. To jump the ball first and give Logan a dismount, that's what LeBron James is thinking now. And, LeBron James absolutely believes he can jump the ball. In terms of jumping the ball with players in the same position as himself, LeBron James has absolute confidence. This confidence comes from the fact that he has two special skills that other players simply do not have. This is his super dynamic vision and field of vision. In the league, it is generally recognized that LeBron James's dynamic vision and vision are the first in the league. LeBron James dared to say that his two skills were second, and no one dared to call them first. Some even think that LeBron James has such excellent dynamic vision and vision that it is a pity to play basketball and should be engaged in sports such as football or boxing that can better play his ability. The concept of field of vision, which everyone understands very well, is the range of your vision. In fact, this is only a relatively shallow understanding, and there is another understanding about it, that is, within the scope of what you can see and see clearly. For example, you and LeBron James both have a visual range of 100 meters, but you can only see and remember how many trees there are in that 100 meters. But LeBron James could see every vein on every leaf of every tree within 100 meters, and at the same time, he could remember them clearly, recording everything he saw visually in his mind. For example, if you are on the basketball court, you can only see 5 people on the court, and you can't stare at the trajectory of these 5 people at the same time, often looking at this and missing that. LeBron James is different, he can reflect the trajectory of these 5 people in his mind and at the same time. In Kuroko's basketball, there is a skill called Eagle Eye. You are like a goshawk, you can look down from above, with the perspective of a goshawk to see the trajectory of each player in the field. Later, there was also the more advanced Griffin Eye, which was owned by Shintaro Midorima's teammate Takao, and this Griffin Eye ability is stronger than the Eagle Eye, and can see all athletes. Not only the trajectory of sports, but every subtle movement made by athletes can be seen. Even Tetsuya Kuroko's stealth ability could not escape the surveillance of the high-tailed Griffin Eye, and the game once appeared very passive. Of course, these two abilities are also hidden in Rogan's system, but they have not yet been discovered. It is said that there is an even more terrifying ability, called satellite perspective, which can monitor every move on Earth like a satellite of the universe, but that is the ability in the killing tennis ball, and has nothing to do with Kuroko's basketball. As for what is dynamic vision, in simple terms, it is the ability to see objects moving at high speeds. This ability is generally reserved for boxers in the boxing ring. After all, the boxer's punching speed, that is very scary. For example, the famous boxer Michael Tyson, his punches are as fast as lightning. You have not reacted, he has been knocked to the ground with 6 or 7 punches in a second. If you can't see the boxer's punches, even if you are strong, your physical strength is abundant, and your muscles are resistant to punching, you will be knocked down by one punch or multiple punches. And LeBron James's dynamic vision, which many people evaluate, is no less than that of professional boxers. At the moment when the referee blew the whistle, before many players could react, LeBron James had already taken off. LeBron James did not hear the whistle, but aimed at the referee's mouth with his characteristic wide field of vision. By the time there was movement in the referee's mouth, LeBron James had already taken off. And he has absolute certainty that this starting action of his is pinching the watch, and the referee will definitely not judge himself to jump in violation of the rules. The other players have not reacted at all, because at this time, the whistle has not yet reached their ears, and of course it is impossible to react. The speed of light is faster than sound, and what the eye sees is always faster and more real than what it hears, and this is the universe that does not become true. In the first moment of the opening, LeBron James has already shown his wide vision and super strong prejudgment, directly pinching the table to jump. At the moment, the ball was about to fall into the hands of LeBron James, but at this moment, suddenly a large hand appeared above LeBron James's arm and directly took the ball away. LeBron James was amazed that someone could jump faster and higher than himself. From the high school league to the collegiate league, from the college league to the NBA, from the regular season to the playoffs to the All-Star game, to the most critical finals, LeBron James has played all, and he has played in the finals, probably more than some players have played in the regular season. But he had never seen anyone who could jump faster and higher than himself when jumping the ball. Who the hell is this guy? The person who stole the ball from LeBron James, of course, is undoubtedly Logan, who jumped with LeBron James. The timing of his jump was even faster than that of LeBron James, and if measured by electronic instruments, the time difference was only about 0.01 milliseconds at most. So, with everyone jumping at about the same height, Logan got the ball first. It's dangerous. Logan stabilized the ball in his hand and murmured, "Worthy of the Emperor, he forced me to open this." After saying this, Logan's eyes suddenly grew sharply, and the light in his eyes soared. At this moment, his body seemed to exude a mountain-like momentum, which made LeBron James unable to breathe at all. LeBron James was astonished, only man was overwhelmed by his own power and could not breathe. It was actually difficult to suppress his breathing, and LeBron James was still the first time in his life that he had met this person, who was sacred. At this moment, LeBron James had the illusion that Logan's whole body was shrouded in a mysterious and majestic light. This kind of light, which can often be seen in the manga Killing Tennis Oh No, is the Prince of Tennis, and it is the special skills unique to Ekizun Ryoma, Toyama Kanedaro, and Tezuka Kunimitsu seamless. In the comics, the sky is seamless, it is simply to meet the gods and kill the gods, meet the Buddha to kill the Buddha, and the heavenly seamless duel. As long as it is not a person who has mastered the seamless skills, all of them are bound to lose. In Kuroko's basketball, there is actually a similar seamless skill, and this skill first appeared on the body of Qingfeng Dahue in the Age of Miracles. This skill is the most magical skill in Kuroko's basketball, called Zone. Episode 126. In The Prince of Tennis, when the seamless is opened, the athletic ability and mental ability of the seamless holder are simply to another realm. The son of the gods in the manga, Seiichi Komura, has a special skill. The 5 senses of severance, as the name suggests, is the 5 senses of the absolute square. I would like to ask, your 5 senses have been cut off, how do you still play? However, once the seamless open, the 5 senses that are cut off will be automatically restored, and every time Yukamura Seiichi faces someone who has a seamless life, he is beaten and does not want to be beaten. The principle of the zone is the same. When the zone is opened, the sports ability, 5 senses, mental strength, technology, hit rate, etc. of the zone holder can be greatly improved. Moreover, some non-physical factors of the skills have become ineffective against the holder of the zone. For example, when Michael Jordan made his 3rd comeback, he was 40 years old and his athletic ability had deteriorated significantly, but many young stars in the league, facing Michael Jordan's momentum, became busy, automatically weak-minded, and the technology should not be able to play at all. This is one of the reasons why Michael Jordan was able to average more than 20 points per game in his 40s. LeBron James has a similar power, and many players will feel tied up and unable to play completely when facing LeBron James. But now, the power of LeBron James has no effect at all, and in turn, there is some fear of Logan. Similarly, trash words such as the big mouth Drummond Green are useless to Logan, because Logan's spiritual qualities have been greatly improved. Zone is absolutely invincible in terms of ability improvement, but zone is also counterproductive, and its only weakness is that the time to open the zone cannot be maintained for too long. If the zone is left on for too long, the zone will automatically shut down, and after closing, the athlete will enter a very tired state. This state, like the mental state that you lose after playing a whole game, the whole person feels like a deflated ball. Therefore, even in the manga, whether it is Aomine Daiki or Akashi Shinjiro, they all took out the zone and used it at a critical moment. Logan also did not want to open the zone at the beginning, but it was true that on the jumping ball, LeBron James's field of view had an advantage, and Logan did not want to be taken by LeBron James, so he opened the zone. Not wanting to consume too much, Logan automatically adjusted the power of the zone and made it a little smaller, which could prolong the time. LeBron James wiped his eyes, and the light around Logan disappeared, and he thought to himself that he had seen it wrong. How could there be light around an ordinary person? Of course, Logan's zone is still open, but LeBron James can see the zone just now. In fact, because of his excellent ball sense and intuition, at this moment put aside the ball sense and intuition, only with the eyes to see, of course, cannot see. Now, it's Logan's turn to hold the ball. LeBron James, who deserved to be the leader of the defending champions, was in danger and immediately signaled to all the Cleveland Cavaliers players to turn into a defensive formation and retreat to the rear. Logan took the ball, was unceremonious, and immediately attacked in a big way. Instead, the rest of the Los Angeles Lakers were a little slow to react and didn't keep up with the Cleveland Cavaliers. In an instant, all the players of the Cleveland Cavaliers retreated to halftime and quickly set up a defensive formation. Even Logan couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Worthy of the team that was able to reverse the 73-win Warriors last year, the defending champion is still well trained. Especially Jimmy Butler, who has just joined the team, is very accurate in his position, and he does not see any sense of violation. Logan praised it again in his heart, worthy of the league, ranked first in terms of seamless connection, and able to adapt to all positions on all teams. LeBron James was also fast. He immediately retreated near the three-point line, and then, feeling that his defensive position was too far ahead, he took another half step back. By this time, Logan had attacked with the ball, and was in the position of a step forward from outside the three-point line. LeBron James, on the other hand, retraced to the back of the three-point line. The audience looked a little disappointed. The distance between the two people was 2 steps, and they couldn't see the wonderful personal attack and defense at all. LeBron James sneered that the Emperor, who has reached the end of his career, has long been less persistent about personal honor than in the past, let alone an ordinary offensive and defensive conversion. This is exactly the tactic that San Antonio Spurs coach Popovich used against LeBron James, and he did not let go of the shot. The fundamental reason why Popovich used this tactic at that time was because LeBron James's three-point was not good, and if LeBron James broke through, not only would he be given 2 points, but he might even be hit with a 2+1, so it was better to let LeBron James shoot 3 points. Now, LeBron James has transferred all of this tactics to Logan. LeBron James, worthy of being half the coach of the team, is remarkable in terms of tactical arrangements. Indeed, in previous games, Logan had shown some ability to excel outside the three-point line. The shooting rate was average, and the number of shots was very small, and it was even compared to Simmons, who could not shoot three-pointers at all. If Logan chooses to force a breakthrough, then in the arms of LeBron James, he wants Logan to attack the inside line. At this time, Jimmy Butler, LeBron James, and Tristan Thompson are all waiting on the inside, and even Michael Jordan may not be able to pass the collective defense of these 3 people. This tactic can still work for Logan in the impression of LeBron James. The boss is really good. Kevin Love, standing on the inside of the Cleveland Cavaliers defending Landry, took the time to pat himself on the back and said, 3-pointers, that's Logan's weakness. Kevin Love's words were not finished, only to see Logan suddenly smile at him. It seems that he heard Kevin Love's comments on himself. It was a confident laugh, and then Logan, with his open hand, was a 3-pointer. LeBron James was a little confused. How, not a little hesitation? Simply and neatly voted? When he faced the San Antonio Spurs defense, he hesitated for several seconds before deciding to shoot a 3-pointer. Will this ball hit? Brush. Logan's 3-pointer went cleanly into the net. Episode 127. Kevin Love's mouth opened wide. Nima, this 3-point shot is cleaner and cleaner than mine. You know, Kevin Love is one of the few big men in the league who can shoot 3-pointers, and he averages 30 plus 30 rebounds per game, many of which are obtained by 3-pointers. Even though Kevin Love's defense is really poor, in the era of the Death 5, this kind of big man who can open up space to shoot 3 points and grab rebounds is too popular, and even in Logan's history line, after the departure of LeBron James, Kevin Love is still the object of pursuit by many teams, including even the Golden State Warriors. But Kevin Love both felt that the quality of his three-pointers was far less than Logan's crisp and clean. You know Kevin Love, not a weak chicken who scores, he is a good scorer. In Logan's history line, when it comes to single-quarter scoring records, everyone knows that it is Klay Thompson, the league's #1 3D guard of the Golden State Warriors. The average person won't remember second place, but the record of scoring second in a single quarter, everyone remembers, is now the Cleveland Cavaliers' big forward Kevin Love. Klay Thompson scored 37 points in a single quarter with 9 three-pointers in a single quarter, the highest single-quarter scoring record in the current NBA league. But Kevin Love, too, is not to be outdone, scoring 8 3-points in a single quarter and 34 points in a single quarter, ranking second. But the way the two men set records is simply a world apart. By the time Klay Thompson set the record, teammates had realized that Klay Thompson was going to set a record, so whether it was Stephen Curry, Draymond Green, Kevin Durant or Andre Iguodala, they were all struggling to give Klay Thompson the ball. But Kevin Love's record-breaking process is different. At that time, there were actually 2 minutes left before the end of the single quarter, and LeBron James, Tristan Thompson, and others also recognized this and desperately handed Kevin Love the opportunity to shoot. Even Junior Smith, the nerve knife who has always been known for his love of shooting, realized this, completely gave up shooting, and desperately handed Kevin Love to create opportunities. However, at that time, there was a person who not only did not create opportunities for Kevin Love, but also desperately shot his own basket, even if it was shot, and all of them hit iron. This person, who is famous in the league and is considered to have the lowest emotional intelligence, where there is an accident, the team has his results are a mess, he was injured and instead played in the playoffs. Kyrie Irving. In the last 2 minutes, Kevin Love's shot had no chance at all, and the whole team watched Kyrie Irving play iron. Otherwise, with Kevin Love's fiery touch, breaking Klay Thompson's single-quarter scoring record is as easy as chopping melons and cutting vegetables. It is such a person who is good at three-pointers, shoots 8 three-pointers in a single quarter, and almost breaks Klay Thompson's scoring record, and after seeing Logan's crisp and clean three-pointers, he is directly ashamed of himself. LeBron James didn't say anything, he just signaled Junior Smith, "You go to the bottom line and pass the ball to me, I'll organize the offense." It seems that LeBron James is still very calm and worthy of being the leader of the team. Only under the cover of his calm appearance, cold sweat slowly oozed from his forehead. LeBron James's heart was as cold as a cold sweat. It turned out that the tactics he thought were only effective against Logan in his own impression, and Logan in his impression was not good at three-point shooting. The so-called layman looks at the hilarity, the insider looks at the doorway, the layman sees, thinking that Logan is not going to shoot 3 points, you let him go like this, and it is very normal for Logan to throw 1 or 2 three-pointers. But LeBron James is a real master, a real insider. As soon as he looked at Logan's three-pointer just now, he knew that Logan was not only good at three-pointers, but also that posture, that look, that head, and three-point technique were definitely above most of the league's three-point shooters. Even, three-point technology is far above yourself. In the three-point technology, he is no longer qualified to compare with Logan. After all, in Logan's historical line, three-point technology has always been the shortboard of LeBron James, until the end of his career slowly stabilized. The opponent is equivalent to shooting at the fixed point when it is empty, and at this time, Logan's shooting skills are not inferior to the 2 fixed-point three-point shooters that LeBron James admires the most, Kyle Korver and J.J. Redick. What is the strength of these two people? These two men are considered to be even more robust than Stephen Curry in terms of targeted shooting. Stephen Curry is best at the face of a variety of tough defense of the unreasonable three-point hit, and even some people side that in the face of Stephen Curry, defense and non-defense seem to be no different. Not defending may also allow Stephen Curry to light the enemy, the shooting rate is reduced. If Kyle Korver and J.J. Redick and Stephen Curry go to the three-point contest without defenders together, I believe that the strength of these two people is stronger than Stephen Curry, and the three-point contest championship odds will be lower. These two people, Kyle Korver and J.J. Redick, were also the people that LeBron James was very eager to recruit, but these two people were too expensive for the Cleveland Cavaliers to afford their salaries. As for Logan's combined three-point prowess, LeBron James estimates, at least to Klay Thompson's level. How could something that D'Angelo Russell could estimate, as strong as LeBron James, not be able to estimate? Of course, LeBron James has not experienced the nightmare of D'Angelo Russell, constantly being thrown by Logan in the halftime, resulting in the feeling of this person is a finisher in human skin, and his judgment at the moment is probably in the case of Logan's three-point strength and Klay Thompson. So I made my own clever let go and don't let go plan. In the face of the real Logan, it was not even half useful. This man's three-pointer not only can't be played, but also needs to be strictly guarded, and it must be treated as Klay Thompson and Stephen Curry. The Los Angeles Lakers relied on Logan's three-pointer to take an easy 3-0 lead. Over there, the Los Angeles Lakers' three teenagers are laughing and making a mess, and D'Angelo Russell laughed and said, "Did you just hear Kevin Love's words? He said that the boss can't shoot 3 points, ha ha ha, the boss can't shoot 3 points, it's the biggest joke I've ever heard in my life." Episode 128, ha ha ha. Larry Nance Jr. laughed and fell. He has not experienced the scene of the boss in the four-person pack, a few steps in front of the three-point line, one after another three-pointer, and he will definitely have nightmares when he sees it. That's right. Ingram frowned and said, "I really had nightmares for days, and as soon as I closed my eyes, I dreamed that the boss was shooting a three-pointer in front of me. I really want Kevin Leffra to watch the training game." D'Angelo Russell said, "I guess he'll have a nightmare about retirement after reading it." Cough, D'Angelo. Ingram said, "But I remember that when someone faced the boss's three-pointer for the first time, he was also as careless as Kevin Love, and he also led a step of defense and did not let go of the shot." The man he was talking about was clearly D'Angelo Russell when he first shot a three-pointer against Logan. D'Angelo Russell was immediately embarrassed to death. "Oh my God, can you please stop mentioning this shameful thing? Be careful that I beat you to death." While the Los Angeles Lakers were joking with each other, the Cleveland Cavaliers had begun to reorganize the offense. The person who organized the offense, of course, is still the Cleveland Cavaliers star and changed to the organization guard, LeBron James. After being preemptively shot by Logan on a three-pointer, LeBron James showed weakness by giving Jimmy Butler a look, and Jimmy Butler understood and the two men dispersed to the sides of the court. LeBron James slowly took the ball and crossed the midline to the three-point line. It was Logan who was in charge of defending LeBron James, only to see that LeBron James was unceremonious, and a heavy shoulder forward rushed forward and crashed into Logan's shoulder. The audience roared, the Mars they most wanted to see hit the earth, and the head-on conflict between LeBron James and Logan finally appeared. This is exactly the stunt that LeBron James became famous for, the breakthrough of the tank. This breakthrough, the average player, is completely impossible to bear. Ordinary players, when they encounter the breakthrough of LeBron James, it is really a crying father, because the breakthrough power of LeBron James is too large, and it is completely reasonable to say that it is a small tank. When an ordinary player blocks him in front, he feels 1,000 sledgehammers on you, and the heavy feels like he is being crushed by a tank. Logically, Logan should now retreat to reduce the impact while interfering with the breakthrough of LeBron James with other actions. But now, the person who doesn't feel right is LeBron James himself. LeBron James's feeling is that he is still a tank, but the tank is now like hitting a copper wall and cannot move forward. By the way, it's like this little tank of yours, hitting the Great Wall. The tank is still that tank, and the power of the small tank is still limited after all. But you are facing the Great Wall of China, which has undergone thousands of years of weathering and is still indestructible. What is Tucker to challenge the Great Wall that will never collapse? Instead, LeBron James himself shook it, but LeBron James was still the LeBron James, and he had already passed the ball to Jimmy Butler, who was at the other far end. The small tank LeBron James's showdown against the Great Wall of Logan ended in the victory of the Great Wall Logan. However, this battle is not over, because the basketball duel is not a street bullfight, and the victory or defeat of the two of you is the end of the round. Basketball is a 5-person team sport. Unable to break through Logan, LeBron James took a timely step back and delivered a pass that spanned the court. The ball, like an eye, went straight to Jimmy Butler, another distal. At this time, in the broadcast room of the Dragon Kingdom, Scott Pippen suddenly smiled and said, This is the showdown between two generations of Bulls. The one in charge of defending Jimmy Butler is the best defender on the outside of yesteryear, former Chicago Bulls All-Star Raul Deng. And he is also facing the former Chicago Bulls best outside defender, the former Chicago Bulls All-Star Jimmy Butler. It can be said that this is the All-Star cultivated by two generations of Chicago Bulls, and now it is a head-to-head showdown. Logically, this showdown should also be very exciting. Not to mention the gimmick of the two generations of the Bulls' strongest small forward showdown, Raul Deng has recovered somewhat this season under the inspiration and adjustment of Logan. He came to defend Jimmy Butler, and it should have been after some fierce entanglement. But what no one expected was that this showdown would end so quickly than the showdown between Logan and LeBron James. The showdown between Logan and LeBron James, the audience thought there would be a lot of entanglement, but they did not expect that LeBron James immediately gave up the idea of continuing the duel when the first breakthrough was blocked, and passed the ball to Jimmy Butler at the far end. The Jimmy Butler showdown took much shorter than the showdown between LeBron James and Logan. At the same time as he received the ball, he did not stop the ball to control it, directly received this long pass, and took a step past Logan, directly to the basket. Ruordang was so surprised that he didn't have time to make any defensive moves. Whoops, whoops. Landry on the inside has rushed to defend, and he remembers Jimmy Butler's dragon move, which is to directly pass the opponent and then cut to the left of the inside line to make a layup. Landry is not one of those muscular stick-type insiders, he is a representative of playing with his brain, diligent and reserved. So he took the lead and blocked Jimmy Butler's breakthrough route to the left. He stood in his position and waited for Jimmy Butler to bump into him to eat an offensive line himself. However, Landry was the only one on the offensive line. Jimmy Butler took a direct right turn and broke to the right, moving like a cloud, as if he had done it a million times with familiar drips, and there was Jimmy Butler, who would only use the left side to break through. Jimmy Butler was about to score a layup, and at this moment, Jimmy Butler's eyes went black, and a huge black shadow had enveloped him. It was Logan, and Logan didn't know when, he had already run into this position. Even Jimmy Butler, whose mind was as hard as a rock, couldn't help but be startled when he saw Logan covering himself, shouting in his heart, this is impossible." Episode 129, Jimmy Butler is arguably one of the calmest players in the entire NBA. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to lead a bunch of old and sick Miami Heat teams to the finals on Logan's history line. Reaching the finals, many times, was based on Jimmy Butler's one-stop layup at key moments, and in addition to the first time, there were many calm assists. Logan often saw Jimmy Butler breaking into the interior at critical moments and then scoring to Hero, Nunn or Duncan Robinson on the outside. These three guys, all of whom are the league's top three-point masters, received the right assists, which is simply a bullet. To put it bluntly, Jimmy Butler at that time was simply another LeBron James, if it were not for the first game of the finals, Glenn Dragic and Adebayo in the Miami Heat Big Three. The victory or defeat of the finals is not easy to say. But Jimmy Butler, so calm, was now frightened by Logan's quick movements. Is this guy really human, and you're sure he's not the Flash or something? In Jimmy Butler's conception, Logan was just defending LeBron James at the other end of the field. After LeBron James was blocked by Logan, the Smart did not continue to tangle with Logan, but chose to split the ball, and had already distributed the ball to himself on the other side of the court. Jimmy Butler took into account the situation on the pitch before he could receive the ball. Jimmy Butler didn't know that he had fully considered Logan's strength, and that speed was lightning fast. He knew that Logan's speed was very fast, and it was impossible not to guard against Logan's defense. If you break to the left side, that is, close to the middle of the basketball court, then it is possible that you will be caught up by Logan to block the defense. After all, it is not very difficult to kill from the left bottom corner to the middle. So, Jimmy Butler chose to break to the right, and the benefits were endless. The first is farther away from Logan, and the second is that he is accustomed to breaking through on the left side, deliberately breaking to the right, which can confuse and deceive defensive players. It was because of empiricism that Landry automatically moved to the left and was deceived by Jimmy Butler. However, people are not as good as the heavens. As strong as Jimmy Butler did not expect that there were people in the world who could be so fast that they could immediately cover the other end of the field. At this moment, LeBron James on the other side is also helpless. He didn't do nothing. In fact, while LeBron James was passing, he had already considered creating opportunities for Jimmy Butler and began to hinder Logan's movement. With LeBron James' defensive ability, trying to hinder the movement of an NBA player, that player may be like an earthworm and unable to move. However, at this moment, he was facing Logan, and the obstacle of LeBron James was actually of no effect to Logan. Logan easily got rid of LeBron James and went after Jimmy Butler on the other side. LeBron James scolded the mother in his heart, meow. The media does not always say that this guy is a domineering and exposed, unlimited strength Wolverine. I don't think he looks like that Wolverine at all, but it's a bit like the Flash who can surpass time quickly and no one can react. However, fortunately, LeBron James's preparation is still relatively thorough. LeBron James' pass was passed from one side of the court to the other, and Jimmy Butler changed his breakout route to stay as far away as possible from Logan. Although Logan made a complete blocking action, but Logan is not a god, the cover cannot suck people's balls over. This blocking action can only prevent Jimmy Butler's shot. Jimmy Butler's all-rounder is on full display at this moment. Just as he was about to be blocked by Logan, Jimmy Butler changed his shot to a pass. This ball, or a very beautiful back pass, passed the ball to the outside line. At the moment, the outside line waiting for Jimmy Butler is Kevin Love. Even though Logan had used his experience to come forward to fill the position, it was useless. Kevin Love, seeing that the man who came up to defend was Logan, was unceremonious and immediately decided to eat hard with his height. Kevin Love, of course, has a huge advantage over Worden. After all, Kevin Lover is a big forward, that body, but much stronger than the small forward Ruor Deng. Ruor Deng is not the kind of player who can play the third and fourth positions at the same time. Even though his defense is already very desperate. Still can't stop the league's super brilliant three-point forward from shooting three-pointers. Kevin Love's throw of the ball felt very good and immediately confidently raised his hands to signal the audience to cheer for themselves. Sure enough, this three-pointer hit easily with a shooting percentage. The three-point hollow into the net, the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Los Angeles Lakers, 3-3 draw. Jimmy Butler and LeBron James, as well as Kevin Love, immediately came over to celebrate the clapping and smiled at each other. Two leaders. LeBron James sneered, "It's still very useful." Jimmy Butler sneered and said, "I agree, yes, this is where the two leaders are useful, and no matter how strong Logan on the other side is, there is only one person. He couldn't move instantaneously, defend both ends of the court at the same time, two all-star level figures." The Los Angeles Lakers' three young people such as Angelo Russell and Larry Nance are very dignified, and now they know why Logan values Jimmy Butler very much. Jimmy Butler had just faced Rogan's sudden cap, and he was not afraid of danger, but these boys were all in the eyes. Being able to face Rogan's deterrent power, there are few people in the alliance who are so unafraid. Myself, I have to hurry up and come forward to help Rogan. I can't let Logan carry the pot alone. At this moment, the two sides are on the same running line again. Logan attacked with the ball, and at this point, the Cleveland Cavaliers' defense of Logan changed. LeBron James stepped forward and defended Logan closely, while Kevin Love blocked Rogan's offensive line. Logan smiled and took the ball out of LeBron James's crotch, a pass that really caught people off guard. The ball was immediately passed to the other side of D'Angelo Russell, at which point Landry on the inside was empty. D'Angelo Russell didn't relax at all, and immediately stepped forward and sent a beautiful aerial relay. Rumble. Landry, who is unguarded, that is an immediate dunk. Episode 130, with the clever assist of D'Angelo Russell, Landry not only dunked, but Tristan Thompson, who came to make up for the position, hit Landry's hand when he was still blocking, and was also sentenced by the referee to a dangerous action foul and awarded a penalty. Tristan Thompson, that was very chagrin, he still thought that his ball could be blocked. Landry was so excited that he immediately came up and hugged D'Angelo Russell. After D'Angelo Russell and Landry embraced, they immediately aimed at Jimmy Butler with the afterglow of the corner of their eyes. While Jimmy Butler shared the pressure for LeBron James, D'Angelo Russell stepped forward to help Logan share the pressure. Landry is actually not good at free throws, and his free throw shooting rate, which is more than 60%. This shooting rate is not much better than the big shark, Shaq O'Neal, who is generally not good at free throws. But Randall, now driven by a strong will, hit the penalty. This attack, the performance can be described as perfect. At this time, several scouts of the New Orleans Pelicans were also watching the performance of several young people of the Los Angeles Lakers in the stands. Scout A said, "D'Angelo Russell's scoring ability is no problem, and the big picture is also okay. Landry has limited talent, but he dares to fight." Scout B said, "His frame protection and rebounding ability is good, and he also has some autonomy in offense, which can be regarded as a good talent." Well, this deal can basically confirm that the Los Angeles Lakers exchanged D'Angelo Russell, Ruor Deng, Ingram and Landry, plus future draft picks, for our thick-browed brother Anthony Davis. Scout A said, "Judging by the momentum of the Los Angeles Lakers this season, their future draft picks are not worth much." Scout B smiled and said, "Maybe they can still win the championship. By the way, don't we look at Larry Nance Jr.? Larry Nance Jr. is not bad." Scout A said, "But we don't need a center for now, or Landry's trade value is bigger. Let's keep watching the game." The score was 6-3, and the Los Angeles Lakers regained the initiative with Landry's 2+1. Logan also high-fived his two little brothers to celebrate, saying that they were doing a very good job. Emperor LeBron James was expressionless, just calmly signaled Junior Smith to hurry up and send the ball out of bounds, and then pass the ball to himself. Even if the current situation is not ideal, LeBron James is not flustered at all. He got the ball and immediately led his teammates to attack again. Jimmy Butler walked past LeBron James and said, "Consciously or unconsciously, do you need me to take possession? Haha." LeBron James showed a mouthful of white teeth and said, "You don't have to work hard. This kind of small scene that is 3 points behind, is it necessary to change the ball holder in a big way?" After all, LeBron James is a man who is facing the 73-win Warriors and is still 1-3 behind. This kind of thing that is 3 points behind is really only a small scene for LeBron James. LeBron James reached the top of the arc and once again faced Rogan's defense. This time, LeBron James wasn't even as anxious as he had been last time, and he deliberately moved 2 steps to the bottom left corner to bring Logan over. After all, the Los Angeles Lakers had no one to defend LeBron James except Logan. You say that lured in, even if it was lured in at its peak, there was no way to prevent LeBron James. At that time, Roar Dang did defend Kobe Bryant in the game, which made Kobe Bryant impressed him. However, LeBron James is recognized as a player who is more difficult to defend than Kobe Bryant, and his violent breakthrough is simply not as strong as that of Bryant LeBron. Therefore, the Los Angeles Lakers are now in a passive state. That is, it is true that Logan can defend LeBron James, but only Logan can defend LeBron James. So, LeBron James controls the ball in any direction, and Logan must follow the opponent like a shadow, and the initiative is completely in the hands of LeBron James. At this moment, he pulled Logan almost to the left bottom corner. That way, Logan would need to expend more energy and physical strength if he wanted to defend to the other side of the field as quickly as he had just done. Moreover, LeBron James is not an idle man, he is always guarding against Logan's steals. Logan's steals are famous throughout the league, reaching out, as fast as lightning, and many players, and even all-star players have suffered big losses. However, it was too difficult to steal LeBron James' pass. If Logan rushes to steal, with the ability of LeBron James, he can definitely dodge Logan's steal and directly shake Logan to break through the inside line. Logan and LeBron James confronted each other and suddenly said, "The audience is waiting to see the good show." Indeed, the audience is looking forward to the final head-to-head of Logan and LeBron James. LeBron James smiled coldly and said, "If you can't wait, then come on," only to see LeBron James take a deep breath, sink his shoulders again, and hit Logan. This time, LeBron James lowered his center of gravity, and his muscles were visibly tighter. This time, the power is greater than the last breakthrough of LeBron James. With a roar, everyone heard the sound of tanks hitting the Great Wall again. However, if the LeBron James who fought with Logan last time is compared to a small tank, then this time, the LeBron James who directly rushed over is an upgraded Tiger-heavy tank. This impact strengthened, even if it was strengthened, but with Logan's ability, Logan still had a way to defend it. But Logan was thinking of something else. Logan, of course, knew that LeBron James had a backhand, and if the impact didn't work out, he had his next move, like sending a pass across the field like he had just done. You're saying that Logan should cut off the ball from LeBron James while defending against LeBron James' onslaught? Please, Logan is not a god. So, this time, Logan took the plunge and used an unexpected defensive strategy. Seeing Logan's footsteps flickering, he actually took a step back to the inside line, and LeBron James followed suit.